Ever heard of a group called the Yazidis?
Oh, absolutely.
They're one of the oldest religious communities in the Middle East, but
Yeah.
their story, it's not one you hear every day.
No, no, not at all. It's a story that deserves a lot more attention, to be honest.
So we're going to try to unpack that a little bit today.
Yeah.
We're going to look at some ancient beliefs, some really honestly shocking persecution,
Yeah.
and a real fight for survival that continues even today.
A very real fight.
So if you're looking to understand the Yazidis a bit better,
This is the place to be.
I think we've got some really incredible sources here
Absolutely.
to help us do that.
Incredible sources.
So yeah, buckle up, get ready. This is going to be a real deep
A
dive.
deep dive indeed.
All right, let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
Who are the Yazidis?
The Yazidis.
Where are they from?
Okay. So you'll find them primarily in northern Iraq,
Okay.
particularly a region called Sinjar.
Sinjar. Okay.
And this area is incredibly sacred to them. Now, they speak Kurdish,
Okay.
but their identity, it goes way beyond just language.
Okay.
You know, it's what we call ethno-religious,
I see.
meaning their cultural and religious beliefs are just totally intertwined.
Fascinating.
And that makes them really distinct, you know,
Mhm.
especially in the Middle East where you have so many different groups.
It's a melting pot of cultures and religions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And their history stretches back
Oh, way back.
way further than most people would realize.
Much further.
Right. I mean, we're talking before
Oh, yeah.
Islam and Christianity
Predating all of that.
came to the region.
Yeah, they've been there for a very long time.
So how far back do their roots actually go?
Well, we can trace their roots back to ancient Mesopotamia.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, think about traditions like Zoroastrianism,
Hmm.
and some early forms of monotheism.
Got it.
And what's really fascinating is they've blended all these influences
Okay.
with elements of Sufism and indigenous Kurdish beliefs.
So it's really a unique kind of,
Very unique.
very unique,
A fusion of all these.
a real tapestry of beliefs.
It makes them distinct then, really, from the larger Abrahamic religions that we think of.
Yes, absolutely. They stand apart.
Now, this is where the story, I think, starts to get really interesting.
Yeah, it takes a turn.
So they believe in a supreme God,
Mm-hmm.
but their most important, figure is
Revered figure, yeah.
Melek Tas, the peacock angel.
The peacock angel.
And this is where things, I think, get a little complicated.
It gets tricky.
Melek Tas, this angel, embodies both good and evil.
Yeah, it's a duality there.
And, I mean, this has caused so much trouble for
Oh,
them.
so much trouble. Misunderstood.
So much misunderstanding. Can you unpack that a little bit for us? Like, who is...
Sure. So the concept of Melektalis, it's often really misconstrued by those looking in from the outside.
Right.
And I think the Yazidi understanding of Melektalis, it's a lot more nuanced
Okay.
than just, oh, they embrace evil.
You know, it's more about the duality of existence.
Okay.
You know, the idea that good and evil are intertwined.
Interesting.
But sadly, these misinterpretations, they've fueled just centuries of persecution,
Oh, wow.
rooted in this false accusation that they're devil worshippers.
It's unsettling, especially, I think, when you consider the fact that the Yazidis, they don't have
They don't.
a written holy book
Nope.
like a lot of other religions do.
Not in the same way.
So how have they managed to keep their beliefs alive for so long?
It's an incredible story of resilience, really. It
Yeah.
comes down to oral tradition.
Oral tradition.
Think about it. Sacred hymns, prayers,
Yeah.
teachings, all passed down through generations.
So it's just word of mouth, basically.
Yeah, it's a living chain of knowledge,
Wow.
you know? And this reliance on oral transmission, it was likely shaped by their history of isolation and persecution,
Right.
which, you know, it probably prevented them from developing a written scripture.
It makes sense when you think about it that way. Yeah.
And sadly, that persecution, you know, it's just woven into the fabric of their story.
It's inescapable.
We're talking centuries of violence and discrimination
Yeah.
stemming from, often stemming from those
Absolutely.
same misunderstandings about their beliefs.
Misunderstandings fueled it all.
Right. So let's dive into that history a little bit.
Okay, let's do it.
You know, you talked about persecution.
Yeah.
What did that look like?
It's a long and painful history, to be honest.
Yeah.
Under the Ottoman Empire, they were systematically targeted for their beliefs.
Just for believing what they believe.
Just for being Yazidi.
Yeah.
And even in more recent times, under Saddam Hussein's regime,
Right.
They faced these forced assimilation campaigns,
trying to basically erase.
trying to wipe out their identity, their culture.
Wow.
And tragically, this wasn't just ancient history.
Right.
Periodic massacres have continued into the modern era.
It's hard to believe that in the 20th, 21st century, this is still happening.
It's a sad reality. And then came 2014, and I think this is when, finally the world seemed to take notice.
The world woke up, but at a terrible cost.
The Yazidis' plight.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking that it took such a horrific event
Right.
for the world to pay attention.
To really see what was going on.
The ISIS invasion of Sinjar in 2014 was a turning point, a terrifying example of targeted genocide.
Absolutely.
The atrocities faced by the Yazidis, particularly women and children, are truly difficult to comprehend.
It's hard to even fathom.
We're talking systematic enslavement, mass executions, sexual slavery, forced conversions. It's just horrific.
It's awful.
Thankfully, though, the UN recognized these atrocities as genocide,
Right.
which finally brought the magnitude of the Yazidis' suffering to the world's attention.
It's really hard to even process that.
It is.
The scale of that trauma. So where does that leave the Yazidis today? I mean, their community was absolutely shattered.
Shattered. The situation remains incredibly difficult. Many Yazidis are still displaced, living in refugee camps, scattered across the region.
Just trying to survive.
Just trying to get by.
Yeah.
Rebuilding efforts in Sinjar are slow, hampered by political disputes, ongoing security threats.
But they can't even go back and rebuild.
It's not easy. And those who have returned to Iraq, they face an uphill battle. Economic hardship, limited access to basic services,
Starting from scratch.
and the constant fear that the violence could erupt again. It's a long and uncertain road to recovery.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It is.
Well, now that we've talked about this really dark chapter,
Yeah.
I want to shift gears just a bit.
Okay.
Because even after facing such unimaginable horrors, the Yazidis are still fighting to survive and preserve their culture.
That's the amazing thing.
How are they managing to do it?
You know what's incredible is their resilience.
Their resilience.
They are fearfully committed to maintaining their traditions, both in their homeland and within the growing diaspora.
Okay.
And, Yazidi activists and leaders have been instrumental in raising global awareness,
Yeah.
advocating for their rights, and seeking justice for the crimes committed against them.
So they're not letting the world forget.
No, they're making their voices heard.
Their strength is really inspiring.
It's truly remarkable.
It really is. So earlier we touched on
Yeah.
the concept of Melek Teres, the peacock angel,
Mm-hmm.
obviously central to their faith,
Oh, absolutely.
but, frequently misunderstood.
Oh, so misunderstood.
Can we dig a little deeper into what it truly represents to the Yazidis?
Sure, I think that's important to do. It's a complex concept, but to understand it, we need to understand that the Yazidi worldview embraces duality.
Duality.
They see good and evil as interconnected forces,
Okay.
essential components of this cosmic balance.
So it's not about worshiping evil, as some have claimed.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's more about understanding the interplay between these forces.
So how does Melek Teres fit into that?
Think of Melek Teres as a representation of the potential for both good and evil that exists within every one of us.
Like in us, no?
Yeah, he's like a test, a constant reminder that we have free will to choose our path.
So it's about choice.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's through overcoming temptation, by actively choosing good, that we achieve true spiritual growth.
That's a really profound idea. It's about taking responsibility for our actions, recognizing that we have the capacity for both darkness and light. It's
Exactly.
a lot more nuanced than just saying, this is good, this is evil.
Yeah, it's about the complexity of human nature.
And it challenges the oversimplified notion of good versus evil that we often find in other religions.
You're absolutely right. It's a different perspective.
The Yazidis embrace complexity, acknowledging that life isn't black and white.
It's a spectrum.
It makes you think about how easily our own biases and preconceived notions can lead to dangerous misunderstandings.
Oh, absolutely.
We project our own interpretations onto something we don't fully grasp.
We do. And that's why it's crucial to approach other cultures with humility and a willingness to learn, to truly listen to their stories and understand their beliefs from their perspective, not our own.
That's such a valuable lesson. It's a reminder to be open-minded, to challenge our assumptions, and to approach the world with curiosity rather than judgment. So now that we have a deeper understanding of who the Yazidis are and what they believe, I want to explore the richness of their culture beyond the narrative of persecution. They've faced such incredible hardship, but they've also shown incredible strength and resilience in preserving their heritage. Let's talk about that.
That's where we need to go next. Their cultural richness is simply remarkable, and it plays a pivotal role in their story of survival.
Yeah, it's a testament to the power of culture and how vital it is to, who they are.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of that cultural strength comes from their connection to their homeland, specifically a place called Lalish.
Lawlish.
I've heard about it.
Yeah.
Why is it so important to them?
Well, Lawlish is home to the shrine of Sheikh Adi ibn Musafir.
A really revered figure in their faith. And for Yazidis, this shrine, it's not just a historical site.
Yeah.
Right. It's their holiest site. It's like a spiritual heartland.
Wow.
Yeah. It's where they go on pilgrimages. It's where they celebrate their festivals. And, it's a powerful symbol of their shared identity.
And given that so much of their faith relies on oral tradition, like we talked about, these gatherings must be incredibly important for keeping those beliefs alive.
You're absolutely right. Think of Lalish as like a living library of their culture. It's where their elders pass on their sacred hymns, prayers, teachings to the next generation.
Mhm.
And it's a vital link to their past, especially in the face of, so much displacement and the threat of cultural erasure.
It makes you really appreciate how physical spaces can hold such deep cultural and spiritual significance.
Exactly. And it's not just about, clinging to the past. It's also about adapting and evolving for the future.
Right.
And this is where the Yazidi diaspora comes in.
Right, you mentioned that earlier, the diaspora.
Yeah.
How are Yazidis who've settled in other countries managing to keep their traditions alive?
They're finding incredibly creative ways to do it. They're forming communities, they're establishing cultural centers,
Yeah.
and they're using technology,
Right.
to connect with each other and pass on their heritage.
Makes sense.
Think online platforms, language classes, even social media. They're finding a way to bridge those ancient traditions with the modern world.
So even though they're geographically scattered, they're still finding ways to stay connected and really keep their culture thriving.
Exactly. It's a real testament to their, resilience and adaptability.
Absolutely.
And I think their story really highlights the importance of raising awareness and educating others about, who the Yazidis are and what they've endured.
Yeah.
Because understanding is the foundation of empathy. And it's the first step toward, taking meaningful action.
Absolutely. We can't allow their story to be forgotten, and we have a responsibility to learn from their experiences and work toward a future where all communities can live in safety and dignity. It's a challenging task.
Yeah.
But seeing their strength, it gives me hope.
Yeah, their resilience is truly inspiring. It really speaks volumes about the power of the human spirit to persevere, even in the darkest of times.
Before we move on, I wanted to circle back to something we discussed earlier.
Sure.
The concept of Melik Tawas, the peacock angel.
Right.
It's clearly a core element of their faith,
It is.
but it's also so often misunderstood.
Oh, yeah.
Can we delve a little deeper into what it truly represents to the Yazidis?
Yeah, I'd love to understand more about that. It seems like a very nuanced concept and one that's easily misinterpreted if you're looking at it from the outside.
That's the key, understanding the context. The Yazidi worldview, it embraces duality. They see good and evil as intertwined forces, both necessary for this cosmic balance. So it's not about worshiping evil, as some have, mistakenly claimed.
No, not at all. Melik Tesses, he represents the potential for both good and evil that exists within all of us. He serves as this test, a reminder that we have free will to choose our path. And it's by overcoming temptation, by choosing good, that we grow spiritually.
That's a really powerful way of looking at it. It's about taking responsibility for our actions, recognizing that we all have the capacity for both darkness and light within us.
Exactly. And it challenges that simplistic notion of good versus evil that's often presented in other religions. The Yazidis embrace the complexity of existence, understanding that life isn't black and white.
It makes you reflect on how our own biases and preconceived notions can lead to such harmful misunderstandings, right? We tend to project our own interpretations onto things we don't fully understand.
You're right. And that's precisely why it's crucial to approach other cultures with humility and a genuine willingness to learn, to truly listen to their stories and understand their beliefs from their perspective, not through the lens of our own assumptions.
It's a valuable lesson we can all apply in our own lives, beyond just the context of religion, to be more open-minded, to challenge our assumptions, and to approach the world with curiosity. rather than judgment. So, having explored the history, beliefs, and culture of the Yazidis, I think it's important to address the kind of the elephant in the room,
Yeah.
their deeply uncertain future.
It's a reality they face every day.
What are some of the most pressing challenges they're dealing with today?
Well, the trauma of the 2014 genocide, it's still incredibly raw for many Yazidis. They're struggling to heal from the physical and psychological wounds that were inflicted upon them. And the process of rebuilding their lives, it's painfully slow.
It's hard to even imagine the depth of that trauma.
It's unimaginable. And it's compounded by the fact that many still don't feel safe in their own homeland.
So that fear is still there.
Oh, absolutely. There's this pervasive lack of trust, a lingering fear that the violence could erupt again at any moment.
So security is a major concern.
Absolutely. The presence of extremist groups in the region remains a very real threat. And then on top of that, you have the political instability, the disputes over land and resources. It all creates this climate of uncertainty and fear.
And what about those Yazidis who are scattered across the diaspora? What challenges are they grappling with?
For many, integration is a huge hurdle, especially for those who experience trauma. Language barriers, cultural differences, discrimination, these are all obstacles they have to overcome. And then there's the constant worry of losing their cultural identity, of being assimilated into the dominant culture. It's a delicate balancing act, preserving their heritage while also adapting to a new life.
It sounds like there's a lot of work to be done, both within the Yazidi community and in the wider world, to ensure their safety and their cultural survival.
There is, but I believe there's reason for hope. The international community is becoming more aware of the plight of the Yazidis. There's growing support for rebuilding efforts, providing humanitarian aid, and holding those responsible for the genocide accountable. And within the Yazidi community itself, there's this incredible resilience, this determination to keep their traditions alive. It's truly inspiring.
It's a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and the importance of preserving cultural identity. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's crucial to reflect on the broader significance of the Yazidi story. What can we learn from their experiences? What responsibility do we have to ensure that such atrocities never happen again?
Those are powerful questions, and I think they're ones that each of us needs to grapple with. The Yazidi story is a stark reminder of the dangers of intolerance and ignorance, but it also offers a glimmer of hope. Their resilience, their commitment to their faith and traditions, even in the face of unimaginable suffering, it shows us the strength of the human spirit. It's a story that deserves to be heard, remembered, and acted upon.
Yeah, it really makes you question, our priorities as a global community.
It does. We've spent this deep dive. We've explored this rich history, this amazing culture of the Yazidis.
Right.
But we've also had to confront this dark reality of the persecution they faced for centuries.
It's a heavy story.
It is. And it's clear their future is still, it's uncertain.
It is.
But I'm curious, what gives you hope for the Yazidi community?
Honestly, it's their resilience, their unwavering resilience. I mean, despite everything they've endured, they haven't given up. They're still celebrating their traditions, raising their families, fighting for the right to simply exist. That spirit, it's powerful. That's really inspiring. But practically speaking, like, what needs to happen to ensure their survival and allow them to flourish? What can we actually do?
Well, I think on a global level, it's about raising awareness,
Okay.
continuing to push for international support.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see those responsible for the genocide. They need to be brought to justice.
Accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. And within Iraq itself, there needs to be a real commitment to protecting the Yazidi community, ensuring their security, supporting their efforts to rebuild their lives, their homeland.
It sounds like there's a role for everyone to play here.
Oh, there is.
Whether it's advocating for policy changes, supporting humanitarian organizations working on the ground, or just, simply educating ourselves and others about the Yazidi people.
Every action, no matter how small, it can contribute to positive change. And I think the Yazidi story, it's a powerful reminder that we can't be complacent. We have to be vigilant in defending the rights of all people, regardless of their faith or background.
You're absolutely right. We started this deep dive by asking, who are the Yazidis? And I think we've uncovered far more than just an answer to that question. We've gained insights into a vibrant culture, a resilient community, and a story that really forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about humanity, about our capacity for both cruelty and compassion.
You put it perfectly. The Yazidi story, it's a call to action for all of us. It challenges us to be more informed, more empathetic, and more proactive in building a world where these kinds of atrocities are never repeated.